Welcome to a new episode of Pili, Raul, and La Musica, presented to you by our friends over at Jack Daniels. And talking about friends, this episode is with none other than nuestros amigos from the band Making Movies from Kansas City. So, Raul, I think this is your first time interviewing them, right?
It is.
You've
But
known
I've
them
been a
before.
big fan. Yes, we
Right.
bumped into each other at countless places, different shows, different conferences, on stage, backstage, as we mentioned in the episode. But yeah, they're sweethearts.
So, yeah, I mean, I've interviewed them. I had them on my show, Te Para Tres. I've interviewed them like 10 times, I want to say. So, and I've known them for about a decade. So we've become friends. You know how it is that sometimes when you interview musicians for a while, you kind of become friends with them. You know, it's happened with Mr. Power as well. And it's one of those things that the music industry gives you, you know, good friends. And I do consider Making Movies good friends of mine. And I know you love them too, Raul. So you're going to have a blast interviewing them.
And I'm excited because these guys are adored by their fans. And we know that being hometown heroes from Kansas City, we get it that their fans are going to love them. But they get the props and the respect by legends like Steve Berlin from Los Lobos, who has produced several of their albums. They've collaborated and now called Ruben Blades a dear friend. And these people know their stuff. So when they give the seal of approval and the nod to a band like Making Movies, not just because of their message, not just because of their music, but because of their drive, their energy, their DIY, mentality that has really kind of set them apart from other bands and other groups because they've stuck to their guns and they make great music. As we know, we love a bunch of their originals, their covers, and excited for the new album that's to come and so much more.
So much respect for them. Seriously, they're such a hardworking band. They're go-getters, and I love that. And I mean, like you said, now Ruben Blades is literally their padrino. It's great that they have someone of that stature bless them during this musical journey.
I know, right? Talk about a seal of approval.
Oh, yeah.
And like saying, okay, you are now blessed, child.
I know. You have my total support. Okay, thank you, Ruben. Pretty
Yeah.
damn cool.
And you know what's really fun is that a couple of the guys were in the studio and Juan-Carlos, one of the members of Making Movies, is roaming around the streets of Kansas City. So you can hear it, you can hear the traffic, you can hear the birds, and it's such a fun chat.
It's kind of like a little tour guide of the sounds of Kansas City thanks to Juan Carlos. All right, so let's get this party started with Making Movies on Jack Daniels Presenta, Pili, Raúl, and La Música. Finally, we get to have my friends and your friends as well, Raúl, right? Because you've met them before.
Absolutely, and I'm big fans.
Yes, I've known them for I don't even know how many years now, and I don't know how many times I've interviewed them, pero son como familia para mí. I would definitely say that they are one of the hardest working bands out there. Con nosotros, Diego, Enrique, y Juan Carlos de Making Movies. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thank you for
Saludos.
finally.
See, this is the first time I get to interview guys. I mean, we've chatted at concerts, in green rooms, backstages, on stages, but never officially behind microphones. So it's a blast to see you guys and to chat with you guys. And I guess we should give a little background and let's get to some of the beginnings of the band because I know you guys have been through a lot. Based in Kansas City, but give us kind of the roots of Making Movies.
The band formed in Kansas City. Diego and I are brothers, and we knew that we could explore making music that lived in the, I guess, in the between like if you were like scanning through a rock and roll station and then you slipped into a salsa station, that there was something happening in the middle there. And we didn't know why, but when we met Juan Carlos, that dream seemed possible, the artistic part of it, because Juan Carlos, like our family, our dad's a rockero, Beatles nut, guitar playing, rock and roll fan, and our mom is just a normal panameña, if it's not a cumbia, merengue, salsa, she just doesn't care, and she doesn't know what the songs ever say or who wrote them or what they wrote them about. She just wants to dance. And Juan Carlos has almost a parallel Mexicano version of that story.
Well, yeah, my dad was a drummer in Mexico, in Guadalajara, back in the late 60s, early 70s for a band called the Spiders. And they were a psychedelic rock band. And then, yeah, he moved to the States after him and my mom met, got married. And then same thing with my mom, but she grew up dancing ballet folklorico. And so that side of that family and my mom's side of the family grew up dancing. And I grew up dancing since I was 3 years old. So I grew up with the very well-rooted side of my Mexican heritage. Even though growing up in the middle of the United States, you know, I always had that passion and love for Mexico. I went to go study there in Guadalajara at the university, just to continue on with learning folklore and the love for it. So, yeah, same parallel kind of lives within our families, but just a little bit different stories.
And it's been great that you guys have been able to maintain your roots and el folclore de ambos de sus países, de Panamá y de México, in your project. Has that been challenging at all?
I don't know if that part has been challenging, but it is. Maybe the challenge is that those things are pretty precious, and you can't fake it. You can't half-ass it. And so sometimes, I think that I guess we underestimated how much work it is. Those simple 3-chord folklore songs, like it seems like it's like, oh yeah, breeze, just play 3 chords and sing the song. It's got 4 lyrics to it. It's not so simple. That music's very deep, and through time, we've earned more and more respect for it. I think that would be my perspective on it.
Yeah, and I think also when we got to travel to Panama, for the first time, me going to Panama, we got to see some folklore panameño, and it was very eye-opening for me to see a lot of the similarities también in Panamanian folklore and Mexican folklore in a specific region of Mexico, more so with like the Caribbean, Veracruz area and things like that. And a lot of the way they dressed, the formal dresses, the steps were very similar. So it kind of blew my mind. And so it made us realize it's all comes from the same place. And we obviously had to go and dig deeper and to see where that place was from. And we're now kind of, thankfully being able to figure that out now as we're here 12 years later as a group.
Yeah, we've been saying that it's like trying to create a sopa. And at first, we didn't know how much of which ingredient needed to go into the pot. But now we have a balance from the understanding of the folklore and an understanding of the rock and roll that we grew up listening to.
We had too much celery and carrot.
Cut out the apio, It was fun.
Yeah, you gotta have it. Well, you guys fuse that kind of rock sound with all the traditional elements. I mean, you're talking folklorico, but also there's cumbia, like you mentioned, salsa. But you guys have managed to make folklorico music hip and cool for the younger generation. Was that always a goal in mind, to like kind of stay true to these roots?
That wasn't an intentional goal for me. For me, the if I could put the goal, like I remember the idea before we actually could start trying it, was that I could feel an energy in like La Murga de Panamá, the Willie Colon and Hector Lavoe song, that when the horn came in, and it was recorded too hot, and so they were like probably on too much cocaine, and the engineer had cranked the highs that the tape machine is wigging out, and so it sounds distorted, like the trombone sounds like fuzzy, and you hear like Black Dog by Led Zeppelin, and there's some similarity in the energy that's conjured. It took us this journey to kind of realize that that's no accident. It's that the real, like, if you go to like in Panama, they always say like, bueno, ¿y quién es tu abuela? If you're being racist at all, if you're like, ese es un negro, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, you can't say that because look at who your grandmother is, because everybody in Panama's grandmother is black, or has some black ancestry, so you can't be racist about it. So it's almost like that. Like if you really look at the abuelo of the abuelo of the abuelo of rock and roll, and the abuelo of the abuelo and the abuelo of salsa, and you'd be like, or the abuela, really, the mothers of these genres, you're going to find at some point they find a common ancestor, and it's not that far back. And I think that we were trying to find that, and then come from that place. And then once you come from that place, then you can do whatever, because you're coming from the place where it originally came from.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. Yesterday, I was having dinner with a couple of friends, and they were talking about Dire Straits. And I'm like, that's funny. I'm interviewing a band tomorrow who's named after a Dire Straits album, which is kind of like, and they were asking me, like, is their sound similar to Dire Straits? And I was like, I don't think so, but
no, not even a little.
There's definitely a little influence.
You know, Enrique's guitar playing style is a little influenced.
Yeah, you hear
by
a little
Mark
bit of the
Knopfler.
twang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like playing with my fingers and the picks. So I mean, on a very minute level, yes.
But our papa was a big Dire Straits fan. He still is a big. I say was. He still is a big Dire Straits fan. And so growing up, we had all of their records, and including Making Movies, which is where we got the idea for the band name.
Well, you can even hear it, and you mentioned the Beatles, but even like in the vocals, like some of those vocals from back in the day, like if you hear them today, you're going to say, wow, they were distorted. What were they doing? What kind of drugs were they on? But that was very intentional and solely on purpose to hear either Paul McCartney's or John Lennon's for that impact. And that's what, you know, some of this instrumentation and your vocals do. You know, it's definitely for impact and to make it resonate for the person listening. And you can hear it. That's you guys take a lot of those cues from these vintage bands.
Yeah, we've always wanted to. So we used to have a rule, and I guess we only broke the rule for Americana, where we were collaborating, and so I had to fly a bunch of files back and forth. So there's a couple of tracks that this isn't true, but we always record the tactile magnetic tape, because I was just an idea that I had, that it's like, we need to have some of that sauce in our music, you know, a little bit of that rough around the edges. And I think it also puts you in a headspace, you know, there's infinite editing possible when you're doing everything on a computer. And when you, even if it's just psychological, when you're like, we have to play this together, right? You know, there's an intensity to that it's hard to replicate when you're just like, you know, if you're sitting there in your computer, and some people make music like this, they're amazing at it. They'll have a mic like this, and they're like typing their edits as they're singing. Like, I guess our friends in Florida Toloache, they did collab with Miguel, and he is so fast at editing his vocals that he hates having anybody else engineer. So he sings his vocal takes, or at least sometimes he sings sitting down, which you think like that's like bad technique for most people, with his hands on the keyboard and mouse, so that he can sing, edit, copy, in, sing. Which is like, I don't. It's kind of amazing. I don't even understand how you can have both brains happening at once. But that's one way to make music, and you can do amazing stuff that way. We felt like we needed the other thing. The all right, guys, if we don't get it right now, we're running out of tape. We needed that pressure to create.
Expensive.
It's expensive, yeah.
Yeah, 2-inch tape is usually pretty pricey.
So, do you work better under pressure?
Yeah, I also think too that being in a household that had all of these artists that were recording this way, we wanted to pull something from that tradition and have some part of that be what we do. And I remember thinking back to like that when we were first working with Steve Berlin on our first album, which was the first time we did it all, the setup that we had hoped for, which is we do the band all to tape. We're putting the tape, we dump that into the computer. So if we need to do edits and mixing all that or any overdubs left over, we can do that there. And it felt like, oh, we're doing a bridge between both worlds. We can live one foot in the tradition and the vintage and all the stuff we grew up listening to, and one foot taking advantage of the world that we live in today. And that has actually been the ethos of our band the whole time. Even our music is that, you know, 1 foot in tradition, 1 foot in something that's been part of something ancient, and 1 foot in, well, what's new in the world today? What can we add to it? Or what's our new perspective on all that now?
And that's making you break so many barriers too, in so many ways.
And confusing a lot of people. Yes.
Let's talk about that, because I know people are like, where do we, you know, what genre are they? Like, I feel like nobody's in a specific genre unless you're like 100% reggaeton, like 100% rock. But most people fuse nowadays. So why do people feel the need to encasillar a cualquier banda? It's like everybody just uses all types of different influences.
I don't know. I don't know why it's so important to people. I guess it helps like categorize, things for record stores or for radio stations. But one thing that we are something that we kind of hit as a stumbling block in our band's journey was that just by singing in Spanish, we were then put into a Latin music category that was actually like, I mean, growing up in Kansas City, we're in the Midwest, and I mean, in LA, there's biculturalness. In San Antonio, there's like bilingual everything. New York City, here we had a promoter. JC's wearing a "Hooray for the Riff Raff" shirt, and we had this promoter in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when Alinda had invited us on the first tour together. He fought tooth and nail to not let us play. He goes, "We don't do that kind of music at our club. It's an Americana club. We don't do your kind of music." Like, what do you mean?
Wow.
Like, our kind of like drums, bass, guitar, you don't do that at your club? Like, I'm pretty fucking sure you do that at your club. Like, and Alinda's management team put their foot down and said, what the fuck are you doing? You're a small club in Tulsa. We get to pick our opener. We're on tour. And they let us play. And the owner apologized to me. I wouldn't have caught wind to it till he came up to me at the venue and said, "I want to apologize to you. You all were great. And people loved it. And I fought tooth and nail saying that you wouldn't fit our crowd. It doesn't fit our club."
Oh my God, the level of ignorance, ¿verdad?
I know, totally. And you mentioned somebody like Steve Berlin, and of course he's from Los Lobos, amazing producer who's obviously worked on your first 3 records, and actually a good friend of the family. And I actually asked him, I go like, well, what was the first thing that drew you to making movies? And he was actually with you guys at the venue Knuckleheads in KC, and he heard a song that was outside their green room, and he actually came out because he thought the DJ was playing something that he had never heard, and come to find out that it was you guys performing live on stage. And that's from the stature of somebody like a Steve Berlin. That's got to give you some kudos where it's like, okay, that's putting you guys in a particular location where you can't pigeonhole your sound, but it's enough that it draws from different elements, that it brings somebody out like that to see what the F is this going on.
Yeah, that was a crazy experience. I think all of us at the same moment, because we didn't see him, or at least I didn't see him on the side of the stage. And he told us that story that he just happened to come out to see, piqued his curiosity to whatever was playing at the time. And same thing, he's like, what is playing? To think that, he hasn't heard anything sound like us is astonishing after how many years in the business. And so that's a huge compliment to us. And the fact that after the show, we got to talk to him and hang out with all the guys, but he made sure that he was the first person that we called when we were ready to make our album. And like Enrique always jokes, he didn't know that he was our only contact at the moment to produce our album. So we were like, you know what, we'll think about it, Steve. Thanks for thinking about it.
You have to space out the text to make sure that you don't seem like real thirsty,
Right. You're like, we have a lineup of producers who want to work with us.
You're not the first guy who came out here to tell us this.
Exactly. I love it. Hey, it worked, I kind of want to go back to your experience of having promoters saying, like, we don't play your kind of music. Was that what prompted your new documentary, Americana?
It's exactly it. There's another story. So we were at a festival in the East Coast, and it's like a famous folk festival that Pete Seeger's played at, Bob Dylan, even Tito Puente and stuff like that. So like it's historic. I think it's the longest running folk festival or something like that. It's historic for that kind of stuff. And the folk music scene is very progressive and leftist and all that kind of stuff. So you never would expect this, but just like the ignorance here, we showed up and like, we're like excited to play this historic festival, and there's like thousands of people, and there's a couple big stages, and they're like, where are we playing? And then we pull up to this. Remember, like Ivan got lost. We were trying to figure out where the tent was, and we pull up back to behind this muddy tent, and there's Gina Chavez, who we hadn't met, but we knew each other. How we met her?
We crossed paths once before, really quickly, but this was the first time that we were gonna share the stage. They told us, "Oh, you guys are gonna do something together."
It was poorly stage managed because we found out that moment like an hour before we're supposed to play. Yeah, we're like, how does this work? It's 45 minutes and it's both of us. There's not enough time to change acts. Yeah, you're supposed to collaborate. We're supposed to collaborate. In the stage, there was like no waters, no sound guy. They had made a mistake logistically that just added to the insult to injury because this muddy little tent that could fit like 27 people or something, and we're supposed to collaborate with Gina Chavez, and nobody knew that, Gina nor us. Luckily, we do you know? I think it might have been La Murga. It's like, do you know what cumbia? I think I know La Murga or whatever. Like we figured out something that we could do together, and then I walked outside the tent, kind of mad, and I looked, and it was the culture tent.
Oh, I see.
And it's like, wow, like that was 2017. That wasn't 1967.
Wow, right?
Like.
You guys break down. I can attest. So, Raul, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but for all the listeners out there, so I was I was lucky enough to fly to Kansas City to record an episode of my TV show Te Para Tres with Making Movies, and they were doing their Making Movies Carnaval.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my first time in Kansas City. We were there just to shoot with them. So they took us around. It was such a fun time. It was, it was very eye-opening. But when I got to the venue and I got on stage to introduce you guys, I look around and I'm like, they're all like Harley Davidson. It's all like bike people, It's like, it's not what you would have thought of for the audience for Making Movies. And they loved them. And that's the power of what you guys are doing. It's like you're truly, because I feel like nowadays everybody uses that term, breaking barriers. I've seen it with my own eyes. You guys actually do that. And I think that's your strongest suit.
Thank you. That's a great compliment.
Yes,
thank you, Pili. That was special to have you there.
Well, it was so special to be there in general. And Ozomatli was there. It was just a very cool experience for all of us involved.
Was that the first one? Was that the first Making Movies Carnaval?
It was.
Yeah, that was.
Wow. So I could just imagine the nerves and, the tension and everything, it was like, wow, organizing
and it was a
festival
bike bar.
in essence.
It was like a bike bar.
Yeah, Knuckleheads is this biker dive that
has,
it's part of like the blues circuit. And, I think you're right to speak to the power of us. But when we have worked with other artists that have done anything similar, like sometimes they're Black artists that broke through to white audiences, or other artists like us that are Latino, but they're bicultural and they reach audiences of all kinds. At the end of the day, that's to me the power of music, that there's something so universal inside of music that lets us forget that there are these divides that we think of, whether they're language or the country that you were born in, or what, like none of that matters. We actually
whether it's a culture stage.
Mm-hmm. Or the culture stage. And the music is still good. You still want to enjoy it. You want to dance to it. You want to feel connected to you,
And I got to say that that set was actually fun. And the next day we played a better stage, and it turned, the story wasn't all sour, but it just goes to show that the barriers still exist. It's not fake. Early, this is a story we don't tell that often, but around that time when Pili, when you came to Kansas City, we started a radio campaign for a song on our first album, and it was like the song that Steve had kind of earmarked as a single, and we were hitting a lot of barrier. Like this doesn't work at our radio station, that kind of thing. And this is like AAA non-com stuff. And then we realized that if we deleted every Spanish word out of the pitch, we are a band called Making Movies, made a record with Steve Berlin, and they were like, of Los Lobos. Is that okay? Can we put of Los Lobos? We're like, no, Los Lobos is safe Spanish. Leave Los Lobos. And then kept the
very safe Spanish.
Yes, it kept the pitch the same. We had more success. And then like you fast forward to our album Americana, and on the NACC chart, the Latin chart, we actually had the best charting record. Like we beat Santana and Grupo Fantasma. They're like on the chart too. For this song, Delilah did really well for us in that place. So that's like two records later. But again, that wasn't that long ago that we had to pretend we weren't Latino to sneak in the back door, and now just wait. Now that we're
No,
in
and
that,
then once
now
you're
that
on
we're in, oh,
stage,
you
there's
just
like no denying that
yeah.
you're Latino.
Yeah, you guys just had to push the door a little bit open, and then you guys just burst it through. Well, it's all about being socially conscious, and that's what you guys have been since day one. And I mean, Making Movies Carnaval is actually a fundraiser. And for those who don't know, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is. It's evolving because we're going to take the Americana brand and we're going to rebrand the festival as Celebrate Americana in 2022. And we're using that. We're creating these documentary pieces and things to kind of aim at that direction. But before we started Carnaval, we had already started a music camp, and we used. I think the second year of Carnaval, we knew that we had to grow this camp into more robust programming for young artists, and we used Carnaval as a fundraiser and raised a bunch of money, and we're able to kickstart a youth program for young songwriters. And now is like now that organization is growing rapidly. We just built a studio for the kids. It'll be open by the end of summer, and are looking for a permanent site for the programming in an immigrant neighborhood that we have been impacting. That's where we started the music camp. So that all came up together. It wasn't it wasn't a big plan. It was like we wanted to do something, so we started the camp. Then Ozomatli's like, "Can you bring us to Kansas City? We need a pickup gig." And we're like, "Oh my God, that's what an opportunity! Let's create like a festival and let's let the kids play." Then after doing that, it's like we got to grow the camp. Maybe we use the festival to grow the camp. Oh, cool. Let's do that. Boom. And then little by little, it's been kind of stair stepping to where it's at. And a lot of that comes from the things we learned from Juan Carlos's family. That ties back to folklore, actually.
What do you guys think is like the biggest growth for you musically, from A La Deriva to I Am Another You to Americana?
A lot of it's because of just all the influences that we've had in these years that we've been as a group, meeting Los Lobos, meeting Ruben Blades, being able to meet a lot of people who we've looked up to musically. We knew that at some point that we were going to have to kind of break free of all these stigmas and all these things that we had kind of against us, and feel like, you know what, guys, we now have to become, just we need to decide what is making movies. And I think these past 2 years have really have done that for us. I think as a group, we've gone through some changes. We've gone through a couple of drummers, including my younger brother, who was our last drummer, and we have a new drummer now, Duncan Burnett. But being able to hone in our sound, and I think we've finally been able to do that. But I think it's thanks to a lot of people that we have been able to look up to in these past, like I said, 12 years that we've been together. And so
Let me clarify, not only meet Ruben Blades, but also
and
record
collaborate
with
with
Ruben
Ruben
Blades.
Blades. It's been that alone was just I mean, for me personally, because we all grew up listening to Ruben, especially Los Panameños, Los Hermanos Chi, and being able to just meet him, talk to him, have him give him his guidance, has been truly a blessing. And then we got to open up for him at the Auditorio Nacional in Mexico City last year, right before the pandemic hit. And yeah, that in itself, I could have died the next day and I would have been happy.
Well, all these guys that you're mentioning, they ooze information and really, the words of wisdom, so I can see how you guys took, the words from Ruben or Steve or whoever, that you guys have worked with, Ozomatli, I can see how even like here in LA, we call like Ozomatli, Los Lobos, La Santa Cecilia now kind of hometown heroes. That's kind of where you guys are for KC, which is awesome. Now you guys are kind of to that level, and like you said, you guys are helping that next generation, doing the fundraiser, doing the all the studio work and everything for them. So it's got to be massive for you.
And creating consciousness también.
Yeah. I was on a Zoom call during kind of like the tighter lockdowns, and it was, I forgot what it was, but it was like somebody was putting us through an exercise. It was connected to the not-for-profit, and that's what you just said is what popped into my head of what the real goal is. The real goal is elevating consciousness, right? And you can do that with music for a young person. because they're attracted to it. We all have used music as a pacifier at some point. Like, oh man, I feel down there. I feel messed up and knots inside. And we've all put on those headphones and had that help us. So young people who are going through stuff are doing that, and music becomes this great like hook to do what though? What are you hooking them into? Just to make them better at music? That's a good thing to do. But I think the word that came to my mind is crear conciencia, elevate consciousness, and that's what Ruben's whole bit was about. And he not only as a writer, when we worked on No Te Calles together, and he wrote the words for that, and he freaked me out by he's like, I got the verse and the chorus, I need you to write the bridge. And I was like, it's like 2 lines, but it's like, how am I going to write something after Ruben? Like Ruben mapped out this it's like this beautifully laid out architecture of poetry, and then I usually just like throw stuff at the wall and see what lands. And I was so afraid to send him the email, but when I sent him the email, here's what I think the lyrics should be. He goes, perfecto, eso cierra el argumento perfectamente, or something like that. He's like, cierra el argumento de la canción. So it's like it closes the loop, and those points of confidence. And he has seemingly, I don't know if he's this way, he must be this way often because he gets that nickname El Maestro, but he took a point to meet with us in New York in January 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And we just had lunch, and it turned into 3 hours. And he was just one, it was trippy because we had been talking about everything that all our questions in the van of just like, man, what about this? What about that? What should we do about this? Like, why is this still a struggle for us? It's as if he had heard the van conversation and he entered the lunch meeting answering the questions almost one by one of the things we were talking about the night before. Like he's like, I want to meet with you all. Come meet me at this restaurant. It's a Chino Cubano restaurant. You can get Chinese food or Cuban food at this little, this little spot in New York that he's obviously been going to for many years. And he just was going, and it was so intentional of him that it was like, it felt really natural. I literally pulled out a notebook and started taking notes. Like he was there to give us a lesson. He's like, make sure, do this, don't do this, focus on this, don't focus on that. Like keep your priorities straight. You can't control this, you can't control that, but you can control this. So focus on that. And I had to pull out a journal, and we were all just sitting there soaking it up. And that's priceless. I don't even know who to express gratitude to other than Ruben, for those kind of experiences. It feels lucky. Like
for sure.
What the hell? It's amazing.
And what was the biggest take from all those notes that you've been able to apply and that you've seen any results from?
Write a song like El Cantante.
That was first. Because if you can do that, you'll be good. It'll all come together. I
could have told you that.
He said a couple things. It's like we had all that existential crisis, and he opened by saying, the journey is long and meandering and at times confusing, but you are on the path. So it started with that, which already was a sigh of relief. But then the one thing I remember taking away was he said, if you can get your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your words, and I'm forgetting one because he had 5.
It was 4.
It was just those 4?
Yeah, it was 4.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got the notes.
He's pulling them out.
I'm going to see if there's something from here that I forgot.
He goes, if you can get your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your actions, and your words to all line up, no matter what it is that you're doing, even if it appears to have failed, you will feel accomplished in it because you were at least being honest and true to yourself. And that will attract the things that you need to come your way. And that to me was it's deep. It sounds simple, obviously very hard to do in practice, but that was the biggest learning for us.
And after that, we were like, check please. It was beautiful.
We're good to go.
We had our café, and that was like,
y pa' fuera.
No, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, he did a talk one time at LAMC. Were you there for that one, Pili?
I don't think so, no.
I was there.
Enrique was there.
You were there. Okay. Yeah, because I think we talked at that time. And oh my God, he had the room jam-packed, first of all. and everybody was just con la baba. Every word that Ruben would say, it's like, yes, maestro, por favor, danos más. Explícanos más, por favor. Everybody, because that's what LAMC in theory is for, to learn the business, the art side of it, the record industry, the ins, the outs, the pitfalls to avoid. And he was there just schooling. But he did it in a way that is like down to earth. Like even when I first asked him, well, what do you prefer? Do you want me to introduce you as Ruben Blades or Ruben Blades? He goes, it doesn't matter. However you want. I'm all like, wow, just to give you immediately that opening, and then for him to start talking the way he talks. And I'm sure, that conversation that you guys had must have been mind blowing, because it was for me then.
I mean, he's so well read and so smart, and he's a great actor. He's a great songwriter. He's a great singer. It's like he doesn't do anything wrong.
And he also like is open when he does. He's like, that was incredible. The one incredible thing another incredible moment was when we were in Mexico and we did a press junket with him, and he had us sitting next to him at the press junket, and it's intense. Writers, because of this gift he has, writers are like, they're like trying to pull the life out. Like they're like Ruben, like yelling at him, and then somebody has to calm him down, and then he's like, there's something happening in Chile. Hay algo pasando, esta protesta, etc. Tell us what you think about it. And with this intensity, like as if he's like, I'm a singer in New York City. I'm not sure how I could solve the political unrest in Chile. You can see him processing that, but then yet making an educated answer. And somebody called out the situation with his son, and how he had not known that it was his son, and it took a long time to get that situation made right. And he said, well, the reason they were asking about his documentary, and he just said, the reason why I allowed the documentary to be made is because I wanted to honor the story of my son. I had made a mistake. It's the mistake I'm most embarrassed about and feel the worst about in my life. And the worst thing you can do when you make a mistake is not admit to it and not be open about it. So I'm admitting that this was a mistake. And I'm like,
wow.
How do you wow, that's a thing to aspire to.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow.
I opened up the conversation saying that I feel like you guys are one of the hardest working bands out there. And I truly do believe that. Is there any point where you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll take it back a bit. And I've done everything I can. I put in all of the effort. I'm just going to let it flow now and see where it takes me.
I don't think we can do that.
I don't function very well taking it easy. The pandemic, I worked really hard on the not-for-profit, more hours than ever maybe, because I just need to keep my mind busy. But I will say, Pili, that with the music, the one thing that I almost don't want to be remembered as the hardest working band. A lot of people say that right when they introduce us, and I almost don't want to be remembered as that, because when you're actually in the process of playing music, you have to turn all that off and let it come through you. And then the things that come towards you kind of play themselves out. So I think we got the hardworking part down. And now it's like when it's time to create, the challenge becomes getting to that place of, am I aligned? Is my emotion and my message and my body and my spirit, is that all like hitting at the same place? You succeeded.
Wow. And so then during pandemic, I mean, you guys obviously didn't do the Carnaval, but how gut-wrenching was it not to be able to give back to the community in that way and actually executing that? I mean, you mentioned obviously you guys were really busy with the fundraiser and with the nonprofit, but actually not doing that execution that people kind of rejoice in and come out to celebrate. How was it? How difficult was that not to be able to do it?
Well, psychologically, the pandemic is such a hurdle to get over, because all of a sudden everything that we were doing ended. I remember when we got the call, we were all together in Memphis. We were working on a new album, and we got a message that South by Southwest had been canceled, and we were scheduled to showcase. And the following week we were going to fly right after that we were going to fly to Panama. Panama shutting down. like everything was closing all at once. And so, the psychological toll of like, well, who am I? What do I do anymore? I don't have anything to do. The challenge became being very centered with what it is that we do as a group, as a band. And that in this case, we decided that the band kind of means just what 4 people agreed to do together. And so what we agreed to do together in the pandemic was pivot the nonprofit to do, we had conversations virtually with guests that would come and speak to the kids and share their stories that way, so we could do something that young people could be receiving from some kind of a educational perspective. Everybody that was home suddenly had free time, so we could have Zoom interactions, not so different than our interview right here, and let the students ask questions, ourselves be gleaning from the same master knowledge that's being passed down. We had Los Lobos come through, we had Flor de Toloache talk to the students, we've had
Black Pumas.
Black Pumas,
Chicano Batman.
Chicano Batman. It was great. And as a group, we decided we're going to continue to work on this album. We're going to finish this album. We can focus on it fully. There's nothing else. There's no touring. So we agree on that. And if we do that, then we're okay. And we ended this pandemic year amazingly having accomplished both. We grew the nonprofit, and we are wrapping up a record that we're all very excited about.
And we made a documentary.
And the documentary. I forgot about that.
Documentary. Well, we're excited for it all, man. So I guess talk to us a little bit about the new record, because we're waiting for new music. Obviously, La Marcha is fantastic, and what the lyrics stand for. And me personally, I love the drama that happens at the end, where it just gets kind of orchestral and moody, and kind of like, it's like it just like within a song, within 3.5 minutes or whatever it is, it takes this dramatic shift. Is more on the album going to be kind of like that, or what can we expect?
I think La Marcha is a great teaser for the album. It was recorded in the same sessions, so same studio, and it does. I think it does give you a taste, right? Because the album's very danceable and rhythmic, and the groove is more the centerpiece of the thing. But it also has these twists and orchestral turns to it too. And that was. I remember that moment in the studio. That's where we were trying to rush through an album, because we were playing at South by Southwest. We were going to open up for Jose Feliciano, and then the festival in Panama. We were playing with Los Lobos at this beach festival, and I was so pumped to party with Los Lobos in Panama. I was like, "This is it. This is it."
You're like, they're on my turf. I'm gonna take them around.
Yes, I was so pumped, man, and heartbroken. And Jose Feliciano, like that's like, I mean, I grew up like listening, and my dad would show me, look at this guy, because Jose Feliciano plays a version of Jimi Hendrix. He would do a version of Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze, on a nylon string guitar that's just like mind blowing. And as a kid, I love that. So I was sad, but then that energy shift on the album, I think I feel confident to say that it is our best work, because we were able to cut out all the noise. We were forced to. There was no other distractions, and we just put all of ourselves into it. It was a great learning experience too, I think, in that way.
So when is it coming out?
We are talking to labels right now, so we don't know exactly when it's coming out.
Wait, what? Did you say labels?
Yeah, we're looking for the right marriage.
It's tough out there,
Are you abandoning the independent
Perhaps
route?
we're on the apps, we're just seeing what's out there. We're seeing
Swiping
It doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Doesn't hurt to ask.
You're bumbling and Tindering your way through the music industry.
See what's
Good for
happening.
you.
Yeah,
Good for you.
I think that we can retain we already made the thing, and so it's not nobody's going to tell us to, you got to better add 2 more songs in English or else it won't work. Like, okay, fine, and you're not the right partner for us. So we already made it, so we feel confident in that, and we also feel really confident in the message and the vision. Like, if somebody's afraid of our message, too late. Like it's out there. We what we stand for. So we feel confident that we can kind of still steer the ship, regardless. So we're looking for that partnership, but tentatively starts dropping singles in September. It's all mixed.
Okay.
It's mixed by Chad Blake, who's a legendary mixer. He's like, I've dreamed of working with him since we started making records. That was a Steve connection. Though Steve was not at the helm this time, but mostly because, only because of the pandemic, because he couldn't come fly in at first. We would get in a van and drive. It was a trippy experience. We had access to, our manager had a connection to an artist residency area of this big arts complex that was like an old Sears building. So it was mostly vacant because it hadn't been used since pre the pandemic. So there's like this wing of this building that had nobody in it. And so we would drive to Memphis to this empty building and we could sleep there. And then we'd go to the studio and not do anything, order food in and record during COVID, during the kind of heavy parts of the lockdown. And I think that feeling gave the record a different flavor because it was like a zombie apocalypse. At night we would get on the balcony and look at Memphis, and it was like a kind of a dense neighborhood in Memphis, like real close to downtown. There'd be like one guy on a bike, like at 11 o'clock at night, like going through, and you're like, did the world end? Like the world ended. It's done.
Right. Well, I'm glad you guys didn't stop making music, and I'm glad that you're just testing it out. It has to be the right label for sure. I know that you guys are smart enough and you've been in the industry long enough to know that if there's a little spark of this might not be it, then I'm sure you guys won't go that route. But yeah. I'm excited for you guys. Any cool collaborations that you can tell us with this new album?
We can tell who was.
Come on.
We're all a little gun shy. We're like, how much do we say? How much do we say?
On one song, we had a guitarist, Mark Ribot, which was a crazy story. If you guys know who Mark Ribot is, he happened to be in Memphis at the same time we were in Memphis, and he was doing a show at the place that we happened to be staying at, and we were just like, oh, wouldn't that be amazing? Because it's one of Enrique's top 3 guitarists, and we're like, wouldn't it be amazing if we invite him to the studio and he come and play on this track? And we just happened to already record the track. And without us having to go to his show to beg him to be on the track, he shows up at the studio as we're tracking, as we're recording, with somebody from who brought him in to do the show. And I guess he brought him to see the studio. And we just happened to be there. I remember the look on Enrique's face. He was like, "Is that Marco, bro?" But I think
we're like that right now, just hearing you say it.
Oh yeah, he played guitar on all of like Tom Waits' favorite famous records and stuff. He's a wild. He always plays with David Hidalgo too. They'll do duo shows because they're both on that level. They're just like wicked musicians. Yeah, that was insane. And then so that was actually right as the pandemic started shutting things down, right? We were starting the record because we talked to Mark. We're like, I remember I texted Steve, because we were all excited, and we asked Mark and Steve were like, have you all ever had a show cancellation because of a virus? Like as if like maybe does that happen? Like he's like, no.
This is new for everybody.
We also Reverend Hodges, who played organ on all of Al Green's hits. And we got to go to Roll Studios where he cut all those hits on the organ where he played those organs. He shows up and plays organ with us on a track to give a real Memphis vibe to one of the tunes.
Wow. I mean, that's so rich of history. I mean, you can't replicate that. You just can't replicate that. And I'm sure the goosebumps and all that kind of stuff comes into play just touching those keys. Just smelling the because every room has its like aroma, its scent, its aura, its energy. I'm sure all that came into play.
Yeah, we got to interview him, and during the interview for the documentary, Enrique and I were sitting right here, right like 2 feet away from him talking, and he has a nickname Do Funny because of the way he plays. He has a funny way of playing, so they nicknamed him Do Funny. And I asked him, I was like, so what is it about your playing that, why is it called Do Funny? He's like, well, for instance, if I start playing Love and Happiness, the Al Green song, and he starts playing right in front of us, and I'm just like, oh my God, you're the dude who plays the part of the organ that plays on Al Green's track. And I'm just like, oh my. I'm like trying to, and you see my face, I'm just cool. I'm just like,
trying to keep it in.
Poker face.
Yeah, both of us were just like, yeah.
In the documentary, like, and we tried to edit out the super cheesing that actually happened. So like it's in there very subtly, but like But I look at Juan-Carlos and I go, too funny. Like this. Like I'm cheesing so bad, like so hard. I was just like, oh my God.
But I love how all these like really cool serendipitous encounters are happening, and it's happening because your vibe attracts your tribe. You're just attracting good people because you guys are good. You guys are not only talented, but you have a good heart. You guys are like son buenos hombres, and you deserve all of these cool encounters and all of these like mentorships from people that you've always admired, and you deserve a lot of éxito.
Thank you,
a lot
Pili.
of success.
Muchas gracias. Yeah, no, it's been amazing. We've been very lucky in that aspect of just being able to meet our heroes. They always say not to meet your heroes, but I think for us, it's been the right thing to be able to meet the people who have influenced us. Just because it's gotten us to where we're at now. I think we're at a point now where we feel comfortable in our own skin as a group. It's no more wondering, well, because we've had so many of those conversations, like, well, you guys don't fit here. You don't fit this. You shouldn't be playing this. It should be, why is your name making movie? You guys shouldn't even have a name making movie. You guys sing in Spanish. It's like all these things that you could just be like, well, then never mind. We don't even want to be a group anymore. It's like, it's like, why are we even doing this, guys? Why are we naming movies? Why are we doing this? But the thing is, none of us had those conversations. None of us amongst us never been like, let's change it. It's always been like, no, we're sticking to our guns. This is what we're doing. This is who we are. If anybody else doesn't like it, well, then so what?
It's on them. Yeah.
It's on them. And so I think that's what's kept us true to ourselves and who we are, and as brothers and as family now. And it's thanks to a lot of those people along the way who we have met, and people like you too, who believe in us and who appreciate what we're doing. Because it's hard to find that, but when you do find that tribe, you do find those people, then it makes everything worth it.
Yeah. I mean, even you sticking to your guns and doing what you guys want. Like, I would have never imagined somebody to do a folklorico version of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It's like, as soon as I got that, I'm all like, instant play on KCRW. I don't care, that it's not the traditional sounding vibe. I'm all like, it's different, it's flipped, but you guys are sticking to your guns. And that version is one thing. I'm wondering, are the songs on the new album all going to be originals, or is there going to be maybe another
The songs on the new album are all original, but we're starting to play a game that we invented during COVID, which is really just an extension of that idea of like, people are never going to think we're going to cover this. And it's also like, it's not new. I mean, great bands do it. Los Lobos do it all the time, where they'll just surprise you at a gig and just play something wild that you would have never pictured them playing, a Merle Haggard song or something. So we're starting a game called Whose Song Is It Anyways? And there's already one in the oven that we use Patreon, like we give demos out to our patrons, but we're making a video of a cover. I can't tell you what song it is, but it's not something you'd ever think we would cover. And we're gonna keep.
Okay.
And we're gonna.
We love surprises.
We just want to can't tell you because our local radio station actually.
Chucha?
That would be good.
Close. Almost.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's
The year is young.
I've ever thought of.
Young. We might come get around to that one.
Can I get some credit for that?
Yeah.
She gave us one. There it is.
Good.
Well, I mean, any more.
Yeah.
Now, Raul, you have.
Oh,
Mira, I
you're
can
gonna
be
get
Chucha
text
in the
messages from me
video.
in the middle of the night. I'm gonna be, you guys should do this. You guys
Please
should do that.
text away.
All right, Raul, that's been 20 suggestions. Okay, that's enough.
I think that's enough.
I'm sticking to Chucha. Y la ira ire. And I'll play
All right.
Chucha in your
All right, we're
video.
in.
We'll have Raul as a backup dancer.
I'm holding you to
Or the
that.
DJ.
And you have made a dangerous proposition here because you.
Be careful what you wish for.
I'm in. And I know Pili is. She's not messing around. She's not gonna say something she's not gonna
Oh
pull
my
through
God,
with.
that would be so fun. Anyway,
That would
guys,
be
we're
cool.
wrapping up, but our last question, we ask this question to all our guests, is there something that you haven't done that you want to do and make it count?
In bed. Is it like a fortune cookie?
We should totally
Oh, okay.
That's what it sounds like. Confucius says.
I want to tour South America. I want to go to Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, and I think that would be amazing. And I can't wait for the world to kind of overcome this virus and Bolsonaro get ousted and people get vaccines and all this craziness so that we can do that. I know there's a lot of rock and roll fans down there.
I have two. One is I would love to meet and or work with Sting. We've come so close. We've almost opened for him like twice. We almost met him twice. So it's like he's there, but he was the first role model for a bassist singer that I ascribed to be. I mean, how much better can you get than Sting?
Don't tell Steve you're such a big Sting fan, because Steve doesn't like Sting.
That's fine. I don't care what Steve is. I want to hang out with Sting. One. Two, and I would love to work with Sting. Two is another in the same vein of like, wish list of people that we've been influenced by and would love to meet and work with. It would be Peter Gabriel. It's been kind of amazing to think like all these artists that we grew up listening to. It wasn't until I fell in love with their music first, and as I learned more about them, they all had a similar ethic, and they all saw the world as a place that when you're an artist and you have such a big presence in it, you should participate in making it a better world and do what you can to make it a better world. And so anyway, I have deep respect for both of them, and I feel like that.
Very cool. Juan-Carlos?
Well, I aspire to look like Ruben, which I think I'm well on my way.
My daughter confuses the two.
You got it down, man. You got it down to the grays and everything.
From the profile, I think.
See, I see that.
Yeah, my daughter, she sees a photo of Ruben Blades and she goes, Tío Juan Carlos. And I'm like, that's not Tío Juan Carlos. But it looks like it.
I think one is actually going to happen next year. We can't say what it is. I'm sure we'll have an announcement at some point at the end of the year of something that we're about to do that I'm like, it's a bucket list. And two is being able to tour with Ruben Blades. That was definitely on the horizon as well but the pandemic happened. But I think that's something that sounds like it's still possible, and I can't wait for that day.
Well, we hope it all happens for you guys and all your wishes come true and you make it count. Y gracias nuevamente. Gracias, Diego, Enrique, Juan Carlos. You guys are awesome. I can't wait to see you guys live again. Y darles un buen abrazo. You know that
Thank you.
We're always here for you.
We love you all. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get to KC, go have some Cuban Chinese food, go watch a show at Knuckleheads.
Come to New York.
And then go to Kaufman Stadium to go watch a Royals
maybe when the
game.
Dodgers are in town. Well, you're welcome.
I would, I'm a big, massive fan of baseball and going to other stadiums. And that KC stadium for the Royals is one of the most iconic stadiums on the planet. So I would love to go do that kind of trifecta thing,
But you know that if they're playing the Dodgers, Raul,
I know.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all love. It's all love.
Welcome.
We'll put you up and we'll take good care of you. We'll show you around town. You'll have a great time. Literally, you're welcome anytime.
Oíste, Pili, ya dijeron, ¿eh?
Sí.
You heard them.
Pili knows.
Lo tenemos grabado. Sí, pero ya me toca volver. That was too long ago. I have to go back.
Yeah, you do have to come back. Both of you guys come back. Do a podcast here.
Sure. And then I'll take some classes, some folklore.
Folklorical classics.
Folklore with exercise.
Okay.
I mean, it's already exercise.
You nailed it.
Exactamente.
Classes. Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna add you to my Instagram page. All right, accept it.
I will.
All right.
And we'll accept you on Pili Raul La Musica as well.
Listo.
Yes.
2 new followers, right? Raul.
Well, guys, continued success. We love you guys, and we can't wait to hear the new record, and can't wait to, like Billy said, see you guys here in LA, see you in KC. Maybe we meet you down in Panama. Who knows where? But we definitely got to be there to,
Thank you.
some hugs and kisses all around.
All right.
Appreciate it very much.
Bye.
So we basically have, I would say, kind of like a signed agreement, given the fact that they said on this recording that they're going to take us to Kansas City.
I can't wait. They're going to take us to a baseball game. They're going to put us up. They're going to be our tour guide. I mean, you've already been, but I'm excited to go to Kansas City for the first time.
Actually, I remember when I went, they took me to a really, really cool jazz club.
Nice.
In Kansas City. It was so fun. It was kind of like a speakeasy, and it had a live jazz band, and we were just mesmerized by the musicians. So it's a really cool city. I can't wait for them to take us back. And if you had never heard of Making Movies before, I hope you fell in love with their story, and now you can fall in love with their music. So check them out on Spotify and anywhere you can find music. You can find Making Movies, and follow them on Instagram, support them, buy their merch, and of course follow us as well. And we have a new YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe so you can see and listen to all of your favorite podcasts.
And of course, thank you to Jack Daniels por el apoyo de la música latina, Shure Microphones for making us sound on point, and of course, you for following us and enjoying these podcasts week after week after week.
We love you.
And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.